Hello everybody and welcome back to the Sonic Marathon. Hopefully my family reunion festivities didn't delay this video by too much. Last time we looked at Sonic CD, a nice little detour on our journey through the series and one that still left a good impression on me after revisiting it. However, the true sequel to Sonic 1 is Sonic 2, which in my opinion is a damn near perfect follow-up to Sonic 1 that Sonic CD should have taken more notes from during its development. However, unlike Sonic CD, Sonic 2 did not have a smooth development cycle as I alluded to in the last video. So allow me to go into more detail about that. So Sonic 1 had pushed the Genesis popularity way up and had successfully broken Nintendo's chokehold on the video game industry. The two were now established rivals that would go back and forth with each other, officially starting the first ever console wars. You were either a Mario kid or a Sonic kid. With this newfound success, a sequel to Sonic the Hedgehog was inevitable. That Sega Technical Institute division I mentioned in the CD video was actually founded during the development of the original Sonic 1 by Mark Cerny of all people. Yeah, the guy who now is the lead hardware designer for Sony's PlayStation. Yeah, he for a time was working for Sega and helping out with different projects, one of those being Sonic 2. As stated in the last video, the Sega Technical Institute was the team working on Sonic 2, but initially when Mark Cerny pitched Sonic 2 for the 1992 holiday season to Sega, they shot him down saying it was too soon for a sequel. Not even more than 2 months later, they would backpedal on that decision, calling out Cerny and saying, nah, on second thought, that Sonic the Hedgehog game is booming right now. We need that shit, but again for this year's holiday season. Then proceeding to hang up after assigning him and his team the task of working on the game. This would leave the team with 9 months to work on the game instead of 11, which if that sounds like that would involve a lot of stress and crunch, you'd be right. This game had some unfortunate struggles before and during its development cycle. Yuji Naka left Sega immediately after the first game over salary reasons and general dissatisfaction with how long it took to finish the game and lack of support from management. Only to be brought back as a member of STI after Cerny visited his house and heard his complaints and opted to fix them in his division compared to Sega Japan. His goal for his division was to have both Japanese and American developers under one roof so that they can learn off of each other and share design philosophies. What that actually entailed was a frustrating work environment due to the cultural and language barriers between the American and Japanese developers due to the Japanese devs being used to crunch conditions with them often working overnight in their cubicles while alternatively the Americans will lock the office doors at night, which I can only imagine would be frustrating for the Japanese developers who wanted to get more work done. Along with this, Craig Stitt, who was an artist who also worked on Sonic 2, recalls that Hirokazu Yasuhara was easy to work with, while reflecting that Yuji Naka was an arrogant pain in the ass, who was not interested in working with Americans. After a bit, Cerny left his own division he created due to the rising tension between the two groups of developers, and that just left Madaharu Yoshi as the temporary head of the Sega Technical Institute, keeping this sinking ship together the best he could. Combine all this with the fact that Yuji Naka often liked to oversee development himself and was not afraid to throw out 4 months of work on a game they only had 9 months to make if said thing wasn't working, and yeah, this led to a ton of content being cut. The game made its deadline by a hair, as the game wasn't even fully beatable until the last 48 hours of development. Any game that came out nowadays that was worked on under these conditions and had this many things going against it would typically come out an unfinished mess or even never see release at all. Hell, even by the standards of 1992, it's kinda shocking that the game didn't get cancelled. But thanks to the optimism of the team on board and their commitment to deliver this game to the public, and the fact that Sega was banking on this game to release for the holiday season and they were practically breathing down their necks, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was released to the public and was met with, once again, critical acclaim. They stuck the landing. Once again, Sonic's Ultimate Genesis Collection was how I first experienced Sonic 2, and I remember having an absolute blast with it. This game was way faster than Sonic 1, had a lot more detail in its sprite work, and had a lot more memorable levels that I enjoyed playing more as a kid. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into the plot of Sonic 2. After the events of Sonic 1 and CD, Sonic takes to the skies in his biplane, the Tornado, to look for more adventure. While searching, he suddenly discovers a small island nearby, and thinking that this was a good opportunity to take a break from flying, the dude lands his plane and scopes out the area when he notices a shadowy figure following him. Whenever he stopped to look at it, the figure would just flee into the bushes, so Sonic paid no mind to it and ran off. The figure emerged, revealing himself to be a fox named Miles Prower, but due to the fact that he had 2 tails, the animals nicknamed him Tails to tease him. He started following Sonic as fast as he could, wanting to be cool like the blue dude. He followed him at all hours of the day until one day, while Tails was geeking out over Sonic's plane, Robotnik attacked the island looking for mysterious gems that were told about in the island's folklore. These gems were the same Chaos Emeralds that were on South Island. As shown in the ending of Sonic 1, these emeralds move around after use, so I'm guessing they went to this island after the ending of that game. Robotnik wants to use them this time to power his new space station, the Death Egg, a lawsuit that surprisingly never occurred. Sonic, not about to let that happen, quickly sets off to stop the Doctor and Tails follows along to help him thwart the Doctor's latest plan. And just like that, the iconic duo Sonic and Tails was born. Out of all the classic games so far that I wish showed the story from its manual, it's honestly Sonic 2. It would have been interesting to get at least a mini cutscene showing Sonic and Tails meeting for the first time and going off to stop Robotnik, but hey, at least Origins rectifies this by showing the meeting in an animated cutscene. Even if it retcons some of the events that took place in the manual, but that's not much of a big deal. As for the actual game of Sonic 2, it's a typical Sonic affair from last time. Collect rings to stay alive, getting 100 will net you an extra life, and getting hit with 0 will kill you. Although, this game is way faster than Sonic 1, and some levels you can even outpace the camera and the controls have been fine-tuned to be even better than the first game. And on top of this, they added a new move that would forever change classic Sonic and remain a series staple. The Spin Dash. I already mentioned this move in the Sonic CD video, but it made its debut here and it's really fun to use. Hold down and press the A button and Sonic will rev into a ball, and by pressing the button even more times you can take off even faster than if you would just do it once. It's an amazing tool for giving yourself a boost of speed, and if there's a hill you can spin dash down it to pick up more speed than if you were to just simply roll down it, which you can still do. Also, since Tails is a part of this story, he follows you throughout the levels, and he's kinda just there to emphasize the theme of Sonic and Tails going on an adventure together. Yeah, he can defeat enemies and collect rings, but it's not like he will be super helpful, he's just fun to have around. The only reason he can keep up with Sonic is due to the two tails on his back. He uses them as sort of like a propeller to push himself forward. He can also use this in the air to fly, but in this game, even if you play as Tails alone, you can't really control it. It's just a way for him to get back on screen when you inevitably leave him in the dust in this game. He can also act as a second player if someone plugs in another controller. Yeah, Sonic 2 is multiplayer, and you can either run through the whole game together or play the dedicated 2-player mode, where you race through 4 different zones. I didn't have anyone to play this with though, so I didn't spend much time with it. The levels themselves are bigger than Sonic 1, but not as big as Sonic CD, and I feel they focus more on speed with platforming challenges sprinkled in. There is more room for some exploration here, as usually going off the beaten path rewards you with more rings, a shield, or speed shoe, or even a shortcut to beat the levels faster. There are whole alternate paths throughout the levels that in some cases cause you to play a completely different part of the act than if you were to just stuck to the normal path, which is great for replayability. The 3-act structure though is gone. Now there are only 2 acts per zone, with Act 2 ending with the boss fight. I think the 2 acts is perfectly fine and makes it to where the zones don't drag out or overstay their welcome. I don't mind if a Sonic game has more than 2 acts as long as the acts themselves are well designed and are visually distinct enough between each act where it doesn't feel like it drags, but 2 acts are a safer amount to prevent that last problem. Although if a zone is fun enough between each act, I don't mind if it's not too visually distinct, but I would prefer a mix of both if more acts are going to be used. The zones in this game are all great, save for maybe Oil Ocean and Wing Fortress Zone. I don't know, Oil Ocean isn't necessarily bad, but I'm not amped up to play it either, and Wing Fortress Zone is annoying unless you use the shortcuts in it, in which at that point it becomes tolerable and sometimes fun. Other than that, Emerald Hill is a great starting level despite having these bandits in these trees that usually when I try to hit them are holding a coconut and I end up hitting it, so I often try to avoid these douches. It's fun, fast, and introduces the corkscrews to the series that look cool as hell to run through. Chemical Plant is the fastest zone in the game, as these speed boosters constantly propel you forward, but they don't overdo it and still have room for momentum platforming to skip chunks of the level. Aquatic Ruin Zone is the water level of the game, and it's not bad either. In fact, you can skip the water by sticking to the top path, and plus, even if you do fall in the water, it's not going to be as stressful as Labyrinth Zone due to the absence of the drown. Oh god, it's back! Casino Night Zone, man. What can I say? It's beautiful, has a relaxing atmosphere, and is filled with fun bouncy bumpers. You can also use the slot machines to get rings, which will become a serious staple to teach kids the hard realities of gambling. Hilltop Zone is a fun zone set in the mountains that has these neat little conveyor belts and this long neck pink panic that I really vibe with. Mystic Cave Zone, while dangerous and filled with spice, is really fun to speed through and narrowly dodges traps and hazards. Metropolis Zone is fun when things are going right, but I swear the hitboxes on these crabs are bugged up the ass, like look at this. Also, the level loves to cheap shot you with things you can't even see coming unless you're like me and memorize the level, or you slow down because you feel an obstacle is incoming. It doesn't hold back, which I guess is fitting for a final zone before the endgame. It's also the only zone to have 3 acts, because of course it does, it's fucking Metropolis Zone. Metropolis is then followed up with Sky Chase, a very relaxing zone where Tails flies you on the tornado and you chase after Robotnik's fortress. All you do here is just jump and beat enemies. The plane automatically follows you, so you can't really fall off unless you spin dash. This song really gets me thinking about the music of the game, which is just chef's kiss. Like, Masato Nakamura once again knocked it out of the park with this one, completely outdoing his Sonic 1 score for me. Every track in this game, from Emerald Hill, Chemical Plant, Aquatic Ruins, Casino Night, Hilltop, the whole game just has jams in every zone that I'm constantly humming while I'm playing because it's just so damn good! The boss theme is also good, but not as good as Sonic 1's. I think that's probably the only track I think I prefer from that game. Speaking of, the bosses are still pretty easy, but on average I think these bosses look more visually distinct than the ones in Sonic 1. Each vehicle Robotnik operates has a different design, while in Sonic 1 all of them were just the basic Eggmobile. Although Sonic 2 does keep boss-specific gimmicks, like the boss in Casino Night being in a pinball machine and Chemical Plants having Robotnik try to dump chemicals on you. Although if you duck, these chemicals will never hit you due to, once again, bad hitboxes. One thing though that's very common is that Tails will hit the boss right before you do, causing you to fall through the boss during its recovery frames. This will be a recurring problem in the rest of the classic games when Tails is with you. Speaking of problems that derive from having Tails around, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Sonic 2's special stages. Getting Chaos Emeralds are handled a bit differently in this game. You still need the 50 rings, but you don't take it to the end and jump into a big ring, no. Instead you pass a checkpoint with the 50 rings and stars will form around the top of it. Jump into that and you're officially in the special stage, which are completely different from Sonic 1 and CD special stages. Welcome to the Half Pipe, the most common Sonic special stage in the series. In these, you automatically run forward and the only thing you can do is move left, right, and jump. The goal here is to collect the amount of rings needed to pass the checkpoint while avoiding bombs that knock rings out of you. Sonic 2's rendition of the Half Pipe is notorious for being very hard, as you can't really see too far ahead of you due to the limitations of the Genesis, something that will be fixed in the Christian Whitehead ports. Another thing that makes these difficult is the fact that having Tails with you means that he has his own rings too that he can collect, but he also loses rings when he's getting hit by bombs. Tails doesn't move immediately when Sonic moves. He has a full second or half-second delay that you have to account for if you don't want him to lose rings as well. You can remedy this by going into the options and choosing to play as Sonic alone or Tails alone, but I always play with both because it doesn't feel right without him. Now, did I struggle with these when making this video? No. Listen, I've been playing this game for over 10 years. I have these stages memorized like the back of my hand. It doesn't really matter at this point if I'm playing the Genesis version or the Whitehead version with or without Tails. I can usually do these first try, but I won't pretend that this wouldn't be an insane difficulty spike to get the Chaos Emeralds compared to Sonic 1 or CD. Someone who's new to these are going to struggle for sure, and I think the reason why they chose to make these so hard is because you have way more chances to finish these than you did in Sonic 1. Across that game's 6 zones, you have 12 chances to finish the special stages, while in Sonic 2 you have as many as there are checkpoints in the game. You can get all 7 emeralds in the first zone, something I have done before but messed up the attempt when making this video. When you finish the special stage, whether you get the emerald or not, you spawn back in the level with 0 rings, but all the ring monitors, item boxes, and ring locations are refreshed, meaning you can backtrack, collect 50 rings, find another checkpoint, and rinse, wash, repeat until you get all the emeralds. When taking this into consideration, I don't mind that the special stages are more difficult. You get plenty of chances to practice them and eventually succeed. But do you get anything else for doing this besides a bonus ending? Absolutely. Super Sonic, another series staple that originated from this game. Clearly inspired by the Super Saiyan transformation from Dragon Ball Z that took place only a year prior to this game, Super Sonic is a super transformation for the Hedgehog, making him invincible, able to fly, and go way faster. He can still die by crushing and drowning, and the form drains 1 ring a second, which can lead you to falling down this infamous pit Mystic Cave Zone and being stuck here. But this is a great reward for players who got all the emeralds. At least if you don't mind putting up with the special stages, that is. With all the Chaos Emeralds gathered, let's finally talk about the final act of this game, Death Egg Zone. First off, after you beat Sky Chase, the next zone, Wing Fortress, starts with Tails trying to land the plane, but getting shot down by the fortress's defenses, meaning you have to play this level solo. After beating the boss, Eggman takes off in his spaceship and seemingly you have no way to make it to him. That's when Tails comes back and helps you grab hold of the ship. Somehow Sonic can breathe in space in this series, so get used to that. After the ship docks, you're officially in Death Egg Zone, which consists of 2 bosses you have to beat with 0 rings. The first being a round with a predecessor to Metal Sonic, Silver Sonic. He's pretty easy. If you memorize his pattern, you can beat him after 1, maybe 2 rotations. After he's down, Robotnik shows that Sonic is not the fastest thing alive, and he jumps into his final creation, the Death Egg Robot. This boss was tough for me as a kid. I could never time my jumps right to prevent me from bouncing into his claws or just missing entirely and dying. Sonic 2 has no save, so if you game over here, you have to start the whole game over again. What you're supposed to do is take advantage of Sonic's jump height and jump just high enough to hit Robotnik without touching his spikes. You can also wait for him to fly off and then land because then he'll bend over and you can safely hit him, but that method will take a while. Mastering the former strategy allows you to beat this boss in seconds. After you beat him, the Death Egg Robot explodes, setting off a chain reaction, causing the Death Egg itself to blow up. Sonic, trying to escape the explosion, runs and falls out of the station. Here, depending on if you got the emeralds or not, Sonic will become Super Sonic and fly to safety alongside Tails, but most players remember the quote-unquote bad ending, which I think as well is a lot more memorable. In this ending, when Sonic falls, he has no emeralds to save him, and like in the good ending, Tails sees that his new friend is in trouble and goes to save him, catching him before he hits the ground as the music swells to emphasize the moment. Around 1992, games didn't have much in the way of stories, and Sonic was definitely showing that games could be more than just level packs you play in your free time. Sonic 2 to this day is still a fantastic game that I recommend to anyone wanting to get into the series. It's more difficult than Sonic CD, sure, but I'd still say it's also a good place to start. Next time in the Sonic Marathon, we will be looking at Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which will cap off the classic portion of this series of videos. If you made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing. It lets me know I'm creating things that people enjoy. I also have a whole bunch of other videos that you can watch too if you like this one. With all that out of the way, until next time, stay safe, peace. I know that these are supposed to be off-rip, no script, just, me talking into the thing, but if it sounds, I've recorded it several times just because it just didn't sound right to me. But hey, if you made it here to this part of the video where you hear me just ramble into a microphone, thank you. It's like sincerely thank you. If you want more videos like this one, I got other videos like this on the channel that you can look at. And putting this here because a surprising amount of people who watched the last video, and it was about Sonic CD. And I'm really happy about that. That makes me happy, and a lot of them, some of them, even subscribing too. So that's pretty cool. If you like stuff like this, then hey, consider subscribing. I got more stuff just like this coming up. And next video is gonna be on Sonic 3, like I just said. Pretty much like I said before, it's right here. One of my favorite games in this series, and I can't wait to talk about it. But yeah, if you made it here, thank you. I'm gonna have obviously like I always do, I'll have like the in video links to go to the playlist of videos and also to subscribe. So yeah, have a nice day. Peace. Oh wait, I already said that.